In this video, we'll be looking through the many Nintendo Switch games, and maybe it will help you choose which game you want to play next. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and holy cannoli, there are so many games for the Nintendo Switch. And as your resident Nintendo freak, I have actually played quite a few of them. So today, let's take a look at 15 of some of the best and possibly worst Nintendo Switch games that I've had the honor of playing. This is Nintendo LABO. Nintendo first announced LABO through a YouTube video on January 17th, 2018, and then it launched on April 20th, 2018 with the Robot Kit and the Variety Kit, which is the one that I have right here. So the Robot Kit is essentially one massive cardboard construction, whereas the Variety Kit comes with 5 of what Nintendo is calling Toy-Cons. The Variety Kit comes with the RC car, the fishing rod, a toy piano, a motorbike, and a house. So when you buy any of the Nintendo LABO kits, it basically just comes with a bunch of sheets of cardboard. And so of course, the first thing that you have to do is put all of them together. As far as the building process goes, I actually thought it was really helpful to have the electronic instructions. I'm so used to using like paper instructions with any of the LEGO sets that I buy, so I was honestly kind of worried about how electronic instructions would compare to like the normal paper instructions. But I was pleasantly surprised with how well the electronic instructions worked. You start up the Nintendo LABO software on your Switch, just like any other game that you buy, and it takes you through step-by-step instructions. And as you go through the instructions, you can actually rotate around the whole cardboard piece. You can go forwards and backwards through the instructions, and you can even like speed up or slow down the instructions. So I was actually really happy with the electronic instructions. I honestly think now I prefer electronic instructions compared to paper instructions, especially for building stuff like this. As far as actually putting it together, it's actually really simple to do. As long as you go through the instructions carefully, I think it's just a really simple process. Like there really weren't any steps where I felt confused or it felt like I was trying to do Japanese origami or something. With that being said, even though it was a simple process to build all of these, it did take a really long time to do. With the Variety Kit, since you get so many different Toy-Cons, some of them take a lot less time than others. For example, the RC car is the simplest one to put together. That one takes roughly 10 minutes or so. However, compare that to the toy piano. According to the instructions, the piano takes about 2.5 to 3.5 hours, although I think I was sitting here for 4 hours trying to put together the piano. So definitely, like, even though it's really simple to put all of these together, it does take a lot of time, so I feel like it's a good rainy day activity or something. So of course, once you put together all of your Toy-Con, the next step to enjoy your little cardboard creations is to actually play with them. And basically the way I see it is that Nintendo LABO is pretty much a Joy-Con tech demo. Especially with the Variety Kit, it really makes use of all of the different features of the Joy-Con controllers. For example, the house and the piano are pretty much made with the IR camera. The RC car makes use of the Joy-Con's HD Rumble so that you can actually use the Joy-Con to control this little cardboard car. And then of course the fishing rod and the motorbike make use of the Joy-Con's gyro sensors. So essentially the way I've been looking at LABO is that it's a big tech demo for the Joy-Con, which I think is really cool. Speaking of really cool, one of the things that I love about Nintendo LABO is just how clever it is. As you put together your Toy-Con, you really start to see how well thought out all of these different little cardboard projects are. For example, with the piano, I was actually really surprised to see how they made all of these functioning buttons. And essentially the way that it works is that they have you bend the cardboard and pretty much make a little spring out of cardboard. I think stuff like that is really clever, and it honestly blew my mind to see that actually work. But besides building it, it's really cool to see how the actual software works with this cardboard hardware. For example, with the fishing rod, you can actually reel in a fish with the actual cardboard fishing rod, and it'll actually show it on the Switch screen. It's just really cool to see how clever and how well thought out all of this is. And finally, with Nintendo LABO, you can sort of discover using the actual software along with the cardboard. To be honest, this whole part isn't really my forte. I'm honestly not too good with programming or anything like that, but it is incredibly cool to see how people have been making use of this technology. And by technology, I really mean just cardboard. For example, there was someone who made a safe out of Nintendo LABO. There are multiple people recreating Game & Watch games using Nintendo LABO. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, like honestly, the possibilities are endless. And in the end, like that's why I love LABO so much. Like something as simple as cardboard can be used so creatively. And as a kid who grew up literally playing with cardboard, it makes me so excited to see what kids are going to be able to do using, just cardboard and their Switch. So that is Nintendo LABO. On March 20, 2020, Nintendo released Animal Crossing New Horizons, the newest game in the Animal Crossing series. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and recently I've been streaming Animal Crossing New Horizons on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ChaseYama. And while I was streaming this game, someone in my chat asked me, do you recommend this game? I thought about it for a while and I figured I might as well just make a whole video about it. Before I even begin to answer this question, let's take a step back and talk about what Animal Crossing even is. The very first Animal Crossing game originally came out in Japan on the Nintendo 64. However, it was later translated and released in the US for the GameCube in 2002. In really simple terms, Animal Crossing is a life simulator. Think The Sims, but in a fantasy world with a bunch of animals. You can talk to your neighbors, buy goods, and decorate your house. One of the coolest features with Animal Crossing is that it utilizes a real-world clock, which allows for night and day events and even seasons to occur. Over the years, Animal Crossing has been brought to many different systems, from the Wii to the 3DS. We don't talk about the Wii U one. With each iteration, there were always some fun and new innovations brought to the game. Animal Crossing Wild World on the DS was the first mobile Animal Crossing game, and it introduced wireless multiplayer. Animal Crossing City Folk on the Wii introduced a city feature. In Animal Crossing New Leaf on the 3DS, you played as the mayor of your own town. And now Animal Crossing has made its way onto the Switch with Animal Crossing New Horizons. Once again, Nintendo has managed to reinvent the series. This time around, you fly to a deserted island where you set up a tent and basically start from scratch. First off, they introduced crafting in this game. When you're just starting out, you have to collect materials such as branches, wood, and stones to craft items such as axes, shovels, fishing rods, and more. It feels very similar to like Minecraft in that sense. You're also given a Nook phone, which is essentially the menu of the game. One of my favorite new features in this Animal Crossing game is the introduction of Nook Miles. Nook Miles are basically just objectives or missions. Whenever you complete a certain task, you get Nook Miles, which you can spend on in-game items. To be honest, there's a lot to this game. It would take me forever to really get into all of the nitty-gritty details, so let's cut right to the chase. Pun intended. Do I recommend Animal Crossing New Horizons? I definitely do. At least if this is your type of game. It's definitely a slower and chill type of game. You won't be fighting monsters or competing in a battle royale. It's a very different type of fun. And it's honestly really surprising to me to see just how many people are playing this game. Like, there are people I know who have absolutely no business playing any type of video game who are now playing Animal Crossing New Horizons. So I hope that answers the question. Especially with everything that is going on in the world right now. It's the perfect game to just completely shut out the outside world and live amongst your animal friends. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and new video games are disgusting. I only want old stuff. Nice. Remastered video games are just one of my top 3 ways to waste money. Usually these games allow developers to introduce their game to a new audience. And there's nobody else who likes to do that more than the big N. 2020 was a terrible year. A global pandemic affected people around the world. But nobody cared about that because it was the 35th anniversary of everyone's favorite plumber. In September 2020, Nintendo uploaded a special Mario-themed Nintendo Direct. They made a handful of announcements that were celebrating the 35th anniversary of Mario. As someone who lives and breathes Mario, this was a pretty exciting Direct. We got to see a cute little reimagining of the Game & Watch with the original Super Mario Bros. We had Super Mario 3D World brought over to the Switch, hecking real-life Mario Karts, but nothing gave me more goosebumps than hearing one of the most recognizable sounds in video game history.
It's me, Mario!
Similar to the original Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo, Super Mario 3D All-Stars would include 3 classic Mario titles, this time focusing on games that had that one extra dimension. The game would include Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. What the heck is this? It was pretty exciting getting these classic Mario games on the Switch. And luckily we didn't have to wait long because just a few weeks after the Super Mario Bros. Direct, Super Mario 3D All-Stars was released on September 18th, 2020. Now since we're going to be covering 3 games in one, I'm going to try to move as quickly as I can through all of these games. Let's start off with this ancient thing. Where's the disc? Super Mario 64 was released on the Nintendo 64 on September 29th, 1996. It was basically the world's big introduction to 3D games after only having 2 dimensions. I know that Super Mario 64 has a soft spot in many gamers' hearts. Personally, I am a baby, so I didn't really have the chance to grow up with Super Mario 64. I literally remember playing with Mario's face on the title screen and thinking that this was the whole game. Money well spent. So let me just get all of my Zoomer complaining out of the way real quick. Camera can be really frustrating. Mario can sometimes feel stiff to control. Okay, now let's actually talk about this particular version of Mario 64. One thing I really like about this version is that it's the Rumble edition of Mario 64. I've heard that this version takes out a lot of the bugs that speedrunners use to speedrun the game, but not for me. The only speedrunning I'm doing is to the toilet. So having that additional immersive element of Rumble in this game is actually really nice. And it honestly just put into perspective for me just how much video games have advanced that this game didn't even have Rumble when it was first released. As for controls, I mean putting this thing into this thing would seem kind of difficult, but I think it works pretty well all things considered. Using the right analog stick in place of the C buttons can be kinda weird. With the C buttons you get 4 ways of movement, whereas the analog stick you obviously have a full 360-degree motion. It's hard for me to describe, but I'm sure people who have played the game know what I'm talking about. Basically, the camera controls of the original game don't really fit the button layout of modern controllers. But overall, I mean, this is a pretty faithful version of Super Mario 64. And funny gamer moment, Super Mario 3D All-Stars was actually the first time in my life that I finished Super Mario 64. So that's a plus of having this release on the Switch. Up next, the black sheep of the 3D Mario family, Super Mario Sunshine. From what I've seen online, people either really love this game or really hate this game. For me, how do you think I feel? No, I'm just kidding, I actually have some fond memories of Super Mario Sunshine. But it was just one of those games that I would put in the effort to try to finish, get mad at these gosh dang darn puzzle levels, and then never look this game in the eyes ever again. Now with Super Mario 3D All-Stars, I get to right all of my wrongs by actually finishing Super Mario Sunshine for the first time ever. Having not actually grown up in the era and just kind of looking back at it from a 22-year-old gamer perspective, Super Mario Sunshine does seem like a really weird and different pivot from what Super Mario 64 was. Obviously, you get the addition of FLUDD, and the game is sort of more lighthearted, literally and figuratively. As for the actual remaster itself, it's Super Mario Sunshine again, but in widescreen. Similar to Super Mario 64, the controls do have quite some disadvantages since it is clearly not a GameCube controller. Since the GameCube controllers had fully analog triggers, they allowed you to half press the triggers for a different control in Sunshine. But now with the Pro Controller and the Joy-Con, they're not analog, so you have a different button layout for the whole game. Nintendo did remedy this by adding GameCube controller support via the USB GameCube adapter that was released with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But I mean honestly, as someone who had very little experience with Sunshine, I didn't really mind the new control layout in Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Overall, I think plugging in the GameCube adapter will give you the definitive version of Super Mario Sunshine on the Switch. And finally, the youngest and most well-behaved child in the family, Super Mario Galaxy. Now this is where things actually become relevant to me. I believe Super Mario Galaxy was one of the first 3D Mario games I ever fully completed on my own. So I do have quite some nostalgia for this particular game. Super Mario 3D All-Stars introduces something that seemed impossible on the Wii version of Mario Galaxy. Full button controls. Kinda. Now you can play Super Mario Galaxy completely using a Pro Controller or even with the Joy-Con in handheld mode. I personally chose to go with the Joy-Con on a TV because I wanted to simulate the experience of using the Wii Remote and Nunchuck. And this control setup works, I think. There's nothing quite like kicking your feet up, resting your arms by your side, and playing some good old-fashioned video games. However, something I noticed with this game and pretty much any games that use motion control on the Switch, the gyro sensor seems to be a bit wonky a lot more than I would have hoped. I find myself having to recalibrate the motion controls pretty frequently, but something about that infrared sensor bar on the Wii was just so hecking accurate. It doesn't completely ruin the experience at all, but it's just something a little annoying that you have to put up with. Overall though, I love me some Mario Galaxy, so this was awesome to replay. One final thing I want to touch on is just the overall graphics of Super Mario 3D All-Stars. With all of the reports and rumors, I think a lot of people, myself included, admittedly were expecting a larger graphical upgrade. Think Super Mario 64 to Super Mario 64 DS, or more recently the Crash Insane trilogy. And I mean, hey, I'll take what we can get. They did in fact subtly enhance the graphics for HD, and Super Mario Sunshine was made in widescreen for the first time ever, but especially looking at Super Mario 64, it's still a 4:3 aspect ratio, which I think is kinda weird. And while things do look sharper, especially the text, you're pretty much playing with the original polygons here. Overall, I think what Super Mario 3D All-Stars does best is introduce these classic games to people who may not have played them. Obviously, it's getting a lot more difficult for people to readily access retro games, let alone the systems that they need to play it. So having this option on a system that so many people already play is really nice to see. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and I have this problem where whenever I meet new people, I end up becoming too much for them to handle. I end up getting too invested in my relationship with people to the point where they end up getting sick of me. Just like Paper Mario. Mario is one of the biggest icons in video games. There's just something about Mario that is so welcoming to anyone regardless of how experienced they are with video games. Mario taught us how to drive, how to type, and how to cure disease. So when Nintendo started making fun and unique RPGs, what better character to include than Mario? Nintendo began their Mario RPGs with Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo, which later spawned more Mario RPGs including the Mario and Luigi series, and of course, Paper Mario. Now let me take you back to a younger Chase. The very first time I saw Paper Mario, I thought it was awesome. The art style was really cool. It brought together Mario with his usual enemies like Goombas and Koopas. Plus, it was Mario. I'm your biggest fan. But I immediately turned away when I saw... Yeah, I really had a hard time playing Paper Mario considering that I've always had the reading ability of a potato. It wasn't until 2016 when I finally sat down and forced myself to fully complete Paper Mario Color Splash on the Wii U. I mean, it was the Wii U, what else was I gonna play? Game & Wario? So what did I think of a Paper Mario game after giving up on them for years and years beforehand? I actually enjoyed Color Splash. I know most people think that the Thousand Year Door will always be the best Paper Mario game and that all of the new ones are just garbage, but I did have a fun time with Paper Mario Color Splash. Now, I'm not gonna say that this was a life-changing game for me, but I'll at least say that it was good enough to finally get me to finish a Paper Mario game. And so, when Nintendo randomly announced a new Paper Mario game for the Switch in 2020, I said, sure. Paper Mario the Origami King was released on July 17, 2020, getting actually pretty decent reviews for the first time in a long time. I think a lot of people were much more open to the idea of this Paper Mario game since it went back to actually having meaningful characters and an interesting story. However, there were still some things that people had their gripes with, but as is my saying with life, we'll figure that out when we get there. Paper Mario: The Origami King starts off with Mario and Luigi being invited to Toad Town by Princess Peach for the Origami Festival. They show up to an abandoned Toad Town and a very haunting atmosphere. I actually thought this was really interesting. It genuinely did feel weird and spooky. Peach walks out and turns out to be folded into origami. She sends Mario to the dungeon where many baddies are also turned into origami. Mario finds Bowser folded up into a square, as well as a friendly origami girl named Olivia. They manage to escape the castle before Olivia's older brother, King Ollie, lifts the castle off of the ground with the help of 5 streamers: Pokimane, Valkyrie, Ryan Higa. No, these are streamers used for crafting, and each one has a different color which essentially serves as worlds or levels in this game. Each streamer features a world to traverse, a boss battle, and for each streamer you get a Vellumental power for Olivia, which allows her to transform and use a certain ability. She's basically Aang. You have the red streamer, where you get the Earth Vellumental and fight colored pencils, the blue streamer, where you get the Water Vellumental and fight rubber bands, the yellow streamer, that's me, where you get the Fire Vellumental and fight hole punch, the purple streamer, where you get the Ice Vellumental and fight tape, and the green streamer, where you fight scissors. Along the way, you also learn more about Olivia's backstory and why her brother is trying to terrorize everyone in the Mushroom Kingdom. King Ollie was created by the origami craftsman because apparently the gift of birth is just something that does not exist in the Paper Mario universe, but Ollie turned on the craftsman and created Olivia. That would be a confusing family tree. It all leads up to one final epic battle against Ollie. This is a really crazy final boss where you team up with an origami Bowser to take down a giant Ollie. And once Ollie is yeeted back to normal, you find out that the craftsman left a nice note written on Ollie's paper, and Olivia says, "Bye." And I was just starting to like her. No, this was honestly a really sad moment for me. Olivia as a character is just so cute, so of course I was sad when she made like anyone I ever cared about and abandoned me. Throughout your journey, you also come across some secondary characters as well. These are pretty much the same characters you would expect to see in the Mario universe. You have Bobby the Bob-omb, Rip Bobby. Kamek ends up becoming one of your allies, and near the end of the game, Bowser ends up being the hero of the day. That's something I have to appreciate about the Paper Mario games. They do at least attempt to go against the same story that we've seen a million times of Bowser being the main villain. So I mean, this game doesn't introduce too many new characters with in-depth stories, but hey, it's pretty much what you would expect from a Mario game. I feel like this game, more than any of the previous Paper Mario games, really leans into the whole paper aesthetic. Even one of the main mechanics in the game is filling holes in the world with shreds of paper. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm such a sucker for all of these games that use craft materials for characters. Paper Mario, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and Yoshi's Woolly and Crafted World all made me throw my money at the screen, even after I already bought the game. The Origami King makes some really cute uses of the paper aesthetic. For example, the water in this area where you steer a boat looks so cool being constructed of paper. So far, I think this is the best looking Paper Mario game to date. But paper be damned, how is the gameplay? Well, this is an interesting one. Paper Mario fans have been ruthless in judging the most recent entries in the series. In the past, Paper Mario leaned heavily into turn-based battles. However, along the way, they started introducing some different mechanics to the turn-based battles. For example, in Paper Mario Color Splash, you had to use these cards that you would pick on the Wii U gamepad. This time, things are extremely different. You still get the turn-based battles, but now you have this ring that allows you to line up enemies. On paper, pun intended, this seems like a pretty interesting idea. I've mentioned in the past that I like when RPGs introduce some kind of unique mechanic that makes the battles seem like more than just reading text on the screen. So the fact that you have these little puzzles to solve in each battle was really exciting to me. Actually doing it though, these are definitely puzzles. I don't know, this point has been beaten to death on reviews of this game, but these ring puzzles just feel completely unrelated and useless. When you think of a Paper Mario RPG, you probably think of Mario stomping on enemies or using fire flowers. But how about rings? The rings don't even really have anything to do with the rest of the game. Along with that, the battles don't give you XP or anything, all you get from the battles are coins. So if I see any enemies, rather than going into a battle to grind for XP, I'm just gonna run away because there's no point in doing these battles if all I'm getting are coins. These battles just feel like they have no rhyme or reason for being here. But then, the game throws a curveball. At the end of each streamer, you have a boss battle which switches up the battle mechanics. Instead of using the rings to line up enemies, now you're using the rings to create a path towards the boss. Once again, I thought this seemed like a really cool battle mechanic at first. I mean, I still honestly feel that the way the boss battles work are more enjoyable than the regular battles, but there's not really any reason for the battles to be like this. I mean, it's unique, but it just doesn't feel like it relates to the rest of the game at all. With all of that being said, one thing I think the Paper Mario developers have down to a T is the humor in the Paper Mario games. I'm gonna be honest, I'm absolutely terrible at reading, which is why I usually don't find humor in writing. But oh boy, playing Paper Mario the Origami King, there was some really clever and just silly writing throughout this game that really got to me. I really appreciate that the Paper Mario games don't take themselves too seriously. Granted, I think there needs to be a balance between good humor and in-depth story, but overall, I think the writers did a good job at making the Origami King feel like an adventure with some great moments of humor thrown in. So in conclusion, Paper Mario the Origami King is a very decent RPG. At this point, I think it's going to be very difficult for the developers to make every Paper Mario fan happy. With everyone holding the 1,000-year door up on this golden pedestal, it may just be impossible to reach that level with another Paper Mario game again. But in my honest opinion, the Origami King is a nice little RPG that tells a story with cute little characters. The humor keeps you entertained throughout the game, and while the combat system is pretty random and irrelevant, it at least gives you something different to do whenever you encounter an enemy. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and I feel like trying out some sports. Well, sports didn't work out for me. How about some video game sports? Nintendo has thrown Mario and the gang into many sports. We got to see Mario play tennis, soccer, and baseball. There was also that time that Mario played basketball with real-life people, but this is just something from my nightmares. Anyway, Mario Golf got started on the Nintendo 64. It continued on the Game Boy Color, GameCube, Game Boy Advance, 3DS, and then Nintendo just kinda stopped caring about Mario sports games. I knew there must have been a reason for Mario looking extra chunky lately. I guess maybe because the Wii Sports series took off, Nintendo felt like they didn't need Mario sports games on the Wii or Wii U. But now, Nintendo is finally turning around and doing something that seemed impossible. They're actually making Mario sports games for the Switch. In 2018, Mario Tennis Aces was released, which was the Mario Tennis game for the Switch. And now, in 2021, we got Mario Golf Super Rush, which is the Mario Golf game for the Switch. So just like the professional golfers say, Red 64 hike. The hot new feature in this game is Speed Golf. When the game was first revealed, the trailer made it look like this was gonna be life-changing. You were gonna play Speed Golf and then just hop right into the grave because there's absolutely nothing better than this. So what happens when you actually play Speed Golf? No, honestly, Speed Golf is actually a very fun game mode. After all of the trailers, I was sure that Speed Golf would end up being like Bowser Party from Mario Party 10. Fun for the first 5 minutes and then you just go back to the normal game. But no, it turns out that Speed Golf is actually a really fun spin on old-fashioned golf. The way it works is all players start teeing off, and as soon as you hit the ball, you run on the course to wherever your ball landed. Along with the traditional scoring system of birdie, par, and bogey, you can also get an additional bonus score based on the time it took you to finish the hole. So there's this level of panic while you're playing this game mode. I think Speed Golf is probably my favorite game mode to play, and you can bet your butt that the next time I go to a golf course, I'm going to be running out into the field. Although speed golf is my favorite, I guess we can also take a look at some of the other game modes. Cross-country golf, or XC golf, is possibly one of the worst things I've ever lived through in my life, and I've lived through the lifespan of the Wii U. In XC golf, you have a set number of strokes to reach a certain number of holes. So for example, you get a total of 30 strokes to hit 6 holes. Ideally, this seems like a very interesting take on the game of golf. It makes you actually think about each shot that you take and plan out all of your future shots as well. But actually playing it is a completely different story. Maybe it's just because my golf knowledge is about as shallow as my self-esteem, but I can't for the life of me figure out how to get the ball to go where I want it to go. If there's a cliff that I need to get up, forget about it. And it's one of these game modes where you could be on stroke 25 out of 30, screw up one hit, and then you have to redo all 30 strokes all over again. I don't really care for XC golf. There's also Battle Golf, which is just complete madness. It's basically a mix between Mario Kart and golf. 4 players battle to score the most holes that are placed around a stadium. There are also items like bombs scattered around, enemies like giant chain chomps, and temporary effects for all players as well. This all adds up to a hectic game where every player is trying to race to sink as many holes as possible. I will say that Battle Golf isn't really my favorite game mode because it does become just a bit too hectic. There are just so many hazards everywhere, and it becomes so frustrating when you have a bunch of bombs flying all over the place, and you just want to hit the gosh dang darn ball. Also, the fact that you're trapped within one confined stadium can become a bit bland at some points. What I like about the regular golf modes is that it switches up the environment with every hole, but this one just has a bunch of holes in one single environment. Overall though, Battle Golf is an interesting take on standard golf that I think makes for a very chaotic party type of game mode. But what if you don't have friends? Well, there's also the Adventure mode, which offers a single player story. You see, in the past, Mario Golf and Mario Tennis would essentially be split up between 2 games. One on the home consoles that was more of a party game, and one on handheld systems that was more of an RPG. Now they basically brought the 2 together. The Adventure mode is an RPG where you play as your Mii trying to become the next golf pro. You start out as a rookie with the Mushroom Kingdom's B team, Toadette, Boo, and Charging Chuck. Meanwhile, the Mushroom Kingdom's main characters like Mario, Donkey Kong, and Bowser are all sort of the professional celebrities in the Mario Golf universe. So you're working with these rookies to climb the ranks to hopefully become just as good as Mario. That's my life aspiration. It's a pretty short experience, taking just about 8 hours. Throughout your adventure, you test your skills in some speed golf, XC golf, and golfing in a natural disaster. They give you some interesting challenges and different conditions to golf in, like trying to finish golf before you dehydrate to death. But honestly, at the end of the day, golf is golf. I mean, these little challenges throughout the game offer some variety, but really all you're doing is hit the ball past the obstacle, win. But they did also introduce some RPG elements such as XP, stat boosts, and some optional side quests. I mean, I do commend them for actually offering a single-player golf mode, but the story isn't very deep and it starts to get a bit repetitive fairly quickly. Overall, the Adventure mode is a nice little short experience that introduces some of the golfing mechanics in the game. Of course, there's also the multiplayer aspect of this game. I have tried out the online multiplayer with some friends, and I was actually pretty surprised how well the online did work. Anyway, Mario Golf Super Rush is a very nice little package of golf. I do kind of wish there were more gimmicky game modes like in the old Mario Tennis games, but for the most part, this is pretty much just standard golf with some fun little quirks. Now, do I think it's worth the full price of a $60 game? I don't know, but guess what my favorite 2 letters of the alphabet are? If this were a budget title, maybe like $40, I would say yeah, this is a nice golf game where you're getting a bang for your buck. But for a full-priced game, I kinda wish it offered a bit more. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and I hate my life. I wish there was a video game that let me have a better life than my real life. Neat. This is Miitopia. So to all of our friendos who have been living under a rock, Mii avatars were originally introduced with the Nintendo Wii. The Wii allowed you to create your own custom avatar that would be used in games like Wii Sports. And I guess Miis were such a huge hit that Nintendo continued milking the heck out of these electronic avatars for over 10 years. When the Nintendo 3DS came out in 2011, Nintendo started branching out with the Mii concept. They introduced the Street Pass feature, which allowed you to greet Miis of anyone who was nearby and had their 3DS in standby mode. I honestly had a blast with this feature because it showed me just how many nerds there were around me. It's like I was able to meet people without actually having to meet people. Later down the line, Nintendo also introduced some Mii games on the 3DS such as Find Me, Mii Force, Mii Trek, and more. This was all leading up to what would eventually become Miitopia, released on the 3DS in 2017. Keep in mind that 2017 was the year that the Switch was released. So by the time this game was released on the 3DS in 2017, I had thrown that piece of garbage in the bin and moved on to bigger and brighter things with the Switch. And it shows because after being released on the Switch on May 21st, 2021, the Switch version sold 36% more copies than the 3DS version in the UK, and 3 times the amount of copies than the 3DS version in Japan. Anyway, the story of Miitopia is told somewhat similar to a play. Throughout the game, you assign the roles of characters to different Miis. These can be either ones that you personally create, or you're able to receive Miis through the internet via codes or by searching through a list of the popular Miis. One day, an evil Dark Lord shows up and starts yeeting people's faces all throughout Miitopia. These faces are put onto enemies that are trying to stop you in your tracks. So it becomes your job as the hero to retrieve all of the faces scattered throughout Miitopia and ultimately defeat the Dark Lord. If you know me, you probably know that RPGs aren't my favorite thing in life. And most of the time, it's because of the combat system. I usually don't really like the idea of battling enemies, but all you're really doing is just reading a wall of text. And for the most part, that's pretty much what Miitopia is. You pick an attack or a skill, bop the enemy, and then the next person's turn. To be honest, this was kind of disappointing to me when I first started playing. I was hoping there would be some kind of unique combat mechanic similar to the Mario RPGs or Undertale. While it doesn't necessarily have something completely unique, there are some little interesting things thrown into the battles in Miitopia, such as the safe spot, which allows your team members to recover. You can ride on your horse and do some extra damage, and you have some sprinkles that you Salt Bae onto your teammates. Along with that, the fact that the characters in the game are Miis that you casted yourself makes it fun to see them express their emotions or use different fighting tactics on enemies. Seeing my stupid little Mii start crying during battle is the most accurate thing I've ever seen in my life. Now with that being said, here's what I think the biggest flaw with Miitopia is. It's too hecking long. So about a quarter through the game, surprise, the Dark Lord takes all of your teammates and all of your special powers. So you're forced to make a new team and give yourself a new job. This honestly felt like a big heck you to people like me who put way too much time and effort into crafting our perfect team. But I mean, whatever, it's a big surprise and it was definitely a major shift in the story. I'm sure it won't happen again. No, do we have to make another team? Oh my goodness, how many teams do we have to make? Heck. After you spend some time with your second team, the Dark Lord comes back and takes your teammates again. So now you're on your third team, and I'm just thinking, at this point, just go alone on your journey. We're going through teammates as quickly as my IRL relationships. It also doesn't help that the game ends up feeling quite repetitive after a while. I think if the game had started wrapping up after you make your second team, I would have said that that was a pretty decent length. But it just keeps on going and going and going. And honestly, this game just doesn't really feel like it had enough depth to be worth pushing on with the story for hours and hours on end. Plus the combat system, while it's fun to see your Miis do their whole battle routine, it can get old pretty fast. You learn new skills and gain new attacks, but for the most part, the combat is pretty much just choose your favorite go-to attacks, rinse and repeat. Another thing I found frustrating with Miitopia is that although the game's main gimmick is to give you so much customization options with casting your Miis in different roles, it gets to the point where there are honestly too many roles to fill. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm completely aware that the amount of people I know in real life is about as small as my self-esteem, but I refuse to believe that anyone playing Miitopia actually knows enough people to fill all of the roles in this game. Granted, the game does give you some default characters to cast in these roles. However, the game is most fun when you come up with some wacky or interesting Miis to be in your story. Steve Harvey. Actually, that works really well. So having to either make a bunch of Miis or having to scour the web for Miis to download can become really daunting and difficult. But hey, I'm sure if you have some creativity, you can come up with some really silly characters to fill these roles. Overall, I think Miitopia is a cute and silly little casual RPG that gives you the ability to create some wacky scenarios with whatever characters you would like. Being able to have a game filled with friends, family, or literally anyone you want is actually really fun. And it's especially funny to see how people you know in real life are incorporated into the story. And the fact that this game is $50 US, $10 less than the normal video game price, plus I've even seen it go on sale a few times, I think it's a pretty good pickup if you're into RPGs, especially since you do get around 30 hours of gameplay. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and this is Super Mario 3D World. Again. Back in 2014, Nintendo released Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U. While it wasn't the Mario Galaxy 3 or Super Mario Sunshine 2 that everyone was hoping for, it was still pretty positively received. And it makes sense because, well, it's Mario. It took the overall structure of the 3DS game Super Mario 3D Land and brings it in HD with the addition of 4-player multiplayer. It quickly became one of the go-to games for the Wii U. If you're buying a Wii U, this was the one game that you just had to pick up. So after the Wii U bled out and was put to rest, Nintendo started re-releasing lots of Wii U games on their way more popular console, the Switch. Starting with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, then Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. But one Wii U game was noticeably missing from the Switch: Star Fox Zero. It wasn't until the Super Mario 35th Anniversary Direct in September 2020 when Nintendo finally announced that Super Mario 3D World would be brought over to the Switch. On February 12, 2021, Super Mario 3D World was released on the Nintendo Switch. It's pretty crazy to think that one of the most beloved games for the Wii U has been squished onto this tiny little cartridge. But let's see what this game is like after playing it 7 years ago. So this is Super Mario 3D World Switch Edition, if you couldn't already tell. 3D World takes the linear 2D Mario gameplay and slaps it into a 3D environment. Unlike Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS, 3D World would include a full overworld map to traverse. It's not a big hub world to explore like Mario 64 or Mario Sunshine, but it's definitely a nice step up from the generic linear map from 3D Land. For the most part, this is pretty much the same overall map from your traditional 2D Mario games. We have grass, water, ice, cloud, and fire. I mean, I want Mario games injected into my veins, so it doesn't bother me at all. But I could see how if people were hoping for something more inspired back in 2014, they might be upset that this is a very safe 3D Mario game. As for playing the actual game, it does pretty much feel like this in 3D. Your main objective is to reach the flagpole at the end of the level. I know everyone has their preferences. Some people really like the sandboxy 3D Mario games, while some can't really wrap their head around moving the camera around. I do think that between Super Mario 3D World and Super Mario Odyssey, 3D World would be way more welcoming to people who may not have the thumb dexterity of us #elite gamers. And honestly, there's something so addicting about 3D World's simple yet explorative gameplay. Sure, you can speedrun straight to the flagpole, but now with all of this extra third dimension, you can explore so much more of the level. It all leads up to the final world, which is a Bowser Carnival theme. And as someone who is way easily amused by lights, I love the atmosphere of the final Bowser world. So in short, if you like this, then you'll probably like this. In the Switch version in particular, there have been some minor revisions to the gameplay. The characters now move quite faster than the original version, which I personally didn't find to be completely life-changing, but especially since these levels are linear and basically take you from point A to point B, I think moving faster is a nice little change. There's also a new snapshot mode that allows you to take in-game photos similar to Mario Odyssey. Stamps have been brought back and completely recolored, which you can now put in your snapshots, and of course some minimal amiibo functionality which gives you an in-game item. However, one thing to note about the Switch version compared to the Wii U version is that the Wii U version made use of the features packed into the Wii U gamepad. You had to blow into the microphone like it was 2004 with the DS again, or you would have to touch on the touchscreen to move items around. But now they've changed a lot of those requirements with using the gyro controls for touchscreen elements and just completely getting rid of the microphone aspects altogether. I don't know, I feel like the gyro controls feel kinda clunky just being forced in here, especially since some third-party controllers don't even have any kind of gyro built in. But I mean, it works, and I guess it's the only way they could have integrated the touchscreen aspects from the Wii U version. But the biggest new addition to the Switch version of Super Mario 3D World is online multiplayer. Thank goodness we're finally seeing online multiplayer brought over to mainline Mario games. To be honest, I haven't tried it out too much since I unfortunately suffer from this new infectious disease called loneliness. But the few times I've tried online multiplayer myself, and from what I've heard from other people on the internet, apparently the online multiplayer is actually okay. Not perfect, but just the bare minimum. So that's Super Mario 3D World on the Switch. I'm honestly really glad that they brought this game to the Switch because it was one of my favorite Wii U games. Just some good old-fashioned Mario levels in 3D. Overall, it's a nice little upgrade with some welcome changes from the original Wii U version. But I do kind of think it would be nice if they included something else to make this game feel even more fresh. Wow. So along with Super Mario 3D World, you also get a side story called Bowser's Fury. During the Mario 35th Anniversary Direct back in September 2020, they showed off a very dark and ominous looking cat bell shrine. It seemed like it would be something completely different than what we were used to from a Mario game, so I was really hyped to give Bowser's Fury a shot. When you first pop in the game, you get this menu option for either Super Mario 3D World or Bowser's Fury. It honestly scared the poop out of me going from the really bright and light-hearted Super Mario 3D World screen, and then the Bowser's Fury screen is all spooky dooky. So Bowser's Fury starts out with Mario just walking along minding his own business, then he follows this trail of ink before he falls to his death in a black hole. The end. For whatever reason, Mario is transported to an island where Bowser is giant and angrier than a 12-year-old on Call of Duty. After Mario gets a cat shine, Bowser gets all scared and runs away. It's at this point when you get teamed up with Bowser Jr., who is just as confused about Bowser's anger issues as Mario is. So you travel all around with Bowser Jr. as your partner in crime, trying to collect as many cat shines as you can. It's really cool because if you're playing with two players, one person can be Mario and one person can be Bowser Jr., but if you're playing single player, you can set how helpful you want Bowser Jr. to be. And Bowser Jr. carries multiple items in his inventory for you, which can be really helpful if you want to quickly switch your playstyle throughout the game. After a while, things start getting hecking dark and Giant Bowser shows up again. You can either find a cat shine to scare Bowser away, or if you have enough cat shines, you unlock the Giant Bell, which allows Mario to go Super Saiyan and take Bowser straight on. These giant battles are so hecking epic, I feel like I'm playing a gosh darn Godzilla movie. It's pretty gosh darn terrifying anytime Bowser shows up. As soon as the rain starts coming down, uh-oh SpaghettiOs. I know for a fact that if I had played this as a kid, I would be so scared. Actually collecting the cat shines is really similar to collecting moons in Super Mario Odyssey. In fact, lots of the elements in Bowser's Fury is pretty much ripped straight from Mario Odyssey. And honestly, I don't mind at all. I feel like if anything, this may even be our first glimpse at a Super Mario Odyssey 2. Overall, Bowser's Fury is such a cool experience. Something completely out of left field for a 3D Mario game. I love how different and honestly kind of weird it is. I can pretty confidently say that Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is one of the best Wii U ports I've ever seen. They've made Super Mario 3D World an even better multiplayer experience, and you get this amazing unique side game Bowser's Fury, which is the complete opposite side of the spectrum from 3D World in the best way possible. If you haven't played this game yet, I'd say this is a must-have for pretty much any Switch owner. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and during Nintendo's E3 2021 Direct, they made a surprise reveal of Mario Party Superstars, a best of collection of the home console Mario Party games.
Oh, let's go! Let's go!
And after being released on October 29th, 2021, let's take a look at the kinda new game Mario Party Superstars. Mario Party Superstars comes with a plethora of boards that span the entirety of the Mario Party series. This game comes with 5 Mario Party game boards, only from the N64 games. In order of difficulty, we have Yoshi's Tropical Island from Mario Party 1, Space Land from Mario Party 2, Peach's Birthday Cake from Mario Party 1, Woody Woods from Mario Party 3, and Horrorland from Mario Party 2. So why does Mario Party Superstars only have 5 boards from the N64 games? My best guess is because throughout the Mario Party games, the rules of the board game changed pretty drastically over time. Mario Party 1 through 4 are what I call the classic Mario parties. They were pretty vanilla in their gameplay styles. Then from Mario Party 5 through 8, they started experimenting with new and different gameplay mechanics, while still keeping the overall structure of the classic Mario Party gameplay. And Mario Party 9 and 10 were the biggest definitions of mistakes. Everyone was moving around the board in one car. So I would imagine if they have different boards from each of these different games, it might get confusing for the player to keep up with the rules for each board from each game. I mean, I already get some pretty major whiplash going from Yoshi's Tropical Island from Mario Party 1, where the star stays in the same place throughout the game, to Space Land from Mario Party 2, where the star changes location whenever someone buys a star. So yeah, in that regard, I can kind of understand why the board choices are so limited in Mario Party Superstars. Along with that, Nintendo has been doing this trend of releasing free DLC for games that originally are missing some content. I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo continues adding more maps to this game as free DLC. Now, in case we have some newbies who are not familiar with the Mario Party gameplay, it goes a little bit something like this. 4 players start out at the beginning of the game board, rolling a dice to see which order the player's turns will be. Each player is given 10 coins to start off with. You navigate around the game board, which are filled with blue spaces, which give you coins, red spaces, which take away your coins, and other special spaces that trigger different events. After the 4 players have a turn on the game board, you all go into a minigame which is decided based on the color space that each player landed on. These can be 1 versus 3 player games, 2 versus 2 player games, and 4-player free-for-all games. The winner of the minigame gets 10 coins, and the ultimate goal of the game is to collect the most stars by navigating to the star space and buying a star with your coins. Alright, now we're finally ready to hop into a game of Mario Party. These are some pretty nice graphics. Mario Party Superstars basically has the same graphics as Super Mario Party, which already looks really good, especially for a Nintendo game. Everything just looks so clean. It's especially fun to see all of these classic Mario Party minigames that we know and love, and now they've been given a completely fresh coat of paint, similar to seeing the retro Mario Kart tracks being remade in Mario Kart 8. With that being said, I do have to say, this might just be the hipster nostalgia speaking, but I find the new age Mario Party UI to be somewhat boring. Like if you look at the games that Superstars is based on, they had so much character. Even the item shops felt so lively and it felt like it had its own atmosphere. But in this game, the item shops just feel like plain old text on the screen. It's a somewhat small detail, but I feel like it really added to the overall party experience. Now what if you hate parties? Well, Mario Party Superstars also has some game modes that are more so focused on the mini-games themselves. You have free play, which just lets you pick and choose any of the 100 mini-games that span across the home console Mario Party games. You also have these game modes that are a bit more competitive. There's the daily challenge, in which you compete in a chosen set of mini-games, and there's also survival, in which you try to get first place in as many mini-games in a row as you can. I mean, these minigame modes are pretty straightforward. If you want to only play the minigames, well, here they are.
I do wish that there were more involved minigame modes similar to what they had in Mario Party 9. Even though it was one of the lowest points of the franchise, Mario Party 9 had some really interesting game modes that were more focused on the minigame aspect rather than the regular party mode. But anyway, I think there's some nice extra game modes if you would rather just play minigames than the actual board game. And finally, Mario Party Superstar's hot new feature, online multiplayer. And I am happy to report that this time, Mario Party finally has proper online multiplayer. Mario Party Superstars, in my opinion, is the first time we actually have decent online multiplayer functionality in a Mario Party game. I am so sorry. When you first start up Mario Party Superstars, you get the option to play the game completely offline, local wireless, or online. And by going online, you can now create a lobby for you and your friends to join. And on top of that, they've added so many little quality of life improvements to Mario Party's online mode. For example, if you and your friends need a break, you can actually save your progress and come back to it later. But what if you don't have friends? Well, luckily, Mario Party Superstars also has online matchmaking, which I think is just amazing for a Mario Party game. Rather than just being a jerk to your friends, now you can be a jerk to anyone around the world. And if you need a way to communicate with the players in the game, there's also the sticker feature, which allows you to display a little sticker on screen for everyone to see. I don't really want to judge Nintendo's online capabilities too harshly just because I do have some pretty scuffed internet if I'm being honest. But I will say that so far, I've had both good and bad experiences with Superstars' online. Sometimes I will straight up just disconnect from the game, sometimes the game will continue but be laggy as all heck, and I did actually have one game that went pretty much as well as I could ever hope for. In any case, I do think that it's really cool that we've reached a point where we can straight up just play Mario Party completely online. But most of all, I think what I find so endearing about Mario Party Superstars is that it basically feels like a celebration of the Mario Party franchise. The amount of fan service in this game is really heckin' cute. You have the ability to go into your player card and select your favorite Mario Party game and your favorite minigames. I would be really interested to see the analytics about how many people selected which Mario Party game as their favorite. Imagine saying Mario Party 10 is your favorite Mario Party game. You can choose whether you want the modern version of the music to play during the matches, or if you want the original classic version of the music to play. And while I joke about the train wreck that is Mario Party 10, I think it's actually pretty sweet that there are minigames spanning literally every game from 1 through 10. Overall, Mario Party Superstars is a nice little package of the classic Mario Party games. It really does feel like a celebration, or a party if you will, of the history of the Mario Party franchise. What is up guys, my name is Chase and this is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. During Nintendo's big February 2021 Direct, they revealed Skyward Sword HD, a new port of the Wii game released 10 hecking years ago. It was now in HD and supported button controls. And that was pretty much all we knew about Skyward Sword HD. Personally, my main takeaway was the slick new Joy-Con, which of course, I had to sell a kidney for. Hot off the heels of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, which in my opinion is Nintendo's best remaster to date, it seemed like Skyward Sword HD was kind of lacking. It made sense for Nintendo to re-release Wii U games since they had to pay people to go out and buy the Wii U, but re-releasing a Wii game seemed weird because everyone and their mother had a Wii. Anyway, after all of that, I will say that it's really nice to have this game on the Switch, especially since I have never played it before. So let's take a look at Skyward Sword for the first time ever. Now keep in mind that this game was originally released on the Wii, and the main purpose of the Wii was to make everyone flail their arms around. So to start out my first ever playthrough of Skyward Sword, I wanted to play the game the way it was meant to be played. Motion controls. The way it was meant to be played. No, in all seriousness, unfortunately Skyward Sword HD really suffers in its motion controls because of our old friend, the sensor bar. The Wii used a sensor bar to track the IR sensor on the Wii remote, which made motion pretty darn precise when it worked correctly. But now with the Switch, we obviously don't have any sensor bar included, so it relies solely on the Joy-Con's built-in gyro controls. And if you've played Pikmin 3 Deluxe or Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario 3D All-Stars, you probably know by now that the gyro does require resetting quite often. It's the same with Skyward Sword HD, except honestly about 10 times worse. Especially since Skyward Sword was made with the Wii remote in mind, there is so much use of motion controls and the Joy-Con's gyro controls just don't cut it. Trying to precisely swing your sword in a certain direction is a hecking nightmare with the Joy-Con. Maybe some people found motion controls to be usable, but at a certain point I had to throw in the towel.
Jeez Louise, I hate motion controls.
And once I switched to button controls, I can genuinely say that the whole game changed for me. You use your right analog stick for your sword and the left analog stick for your shield. Granted, button controls don't work perfectly. Like, since you're using the right stick for your sword, it means that you can't use it to control the camera. You have to either use ZL to center the camera to wherever Link is facing, or hold down the L button while using the right stick to manually move the camera around. But still, I feel like a new boy using button controls with the Pro Controller compared to motion controls with the Joy-Con. While at some points the button controls can feel kinda clunky, it's way more efficient than motion controls in my opinion. Now, according to the guy at the corner of my street, Skyward Sword is officially the very first game in the Zelda timeline. This game follows the story of two friends and hopefully lovers called Link and Zelda, who live peacefully on this island in the sky called Skyloft. They're unsure of what lies below the clouds until one day Zelda gets sucked into the world below. So Link goes on an epic quest of exploring this land below the clouds to save the girl we're shrimping for. Along the way, you traverse your way through vast areas, explore dungeons, and fight baddies. And there's this weird guy with a tongue, I don't know, it's really weird. Skyward Sword's gameplay is really interesting. With this game being the Wii's exclusive mainline Zelda game, of course Nintendo had to pack in as much motion gimmicks as possible. And they sure did fill this game up to the brim with motion gimmicks. Skyward Sword's gameplay completely encompasses around motion control. Rather than Link simply swinging his sword around, every little detail in this game feels like a big event because it requires some kind of motion. Like, you want to open this door? Nah, you have to awkwardly twist the controller around. Personally, I don't necessarily hate that. I think especially for the purpose of showing off motion control, it makes sense why the game was designed this way. At the same time, I can understand why so many people despise this game because of it. The fact that everything relies on specific motion controls can make the game feel pretty slow and clunky at times. But with that being said, Skyward Sword makes use of some very interesting gameplay mechanics. This was the first Zelda game that had a stamina meter, which would carry on into Breath of the Wild. I also thought the Lanayru area made very interesting use of time shift. Every time you hit one of these stones, it changes the environment to a different time period, and all the items that you carry in your pouch are really interesting as well. I really liked the Beetle in particular. Controlling this little device that can pick up bombs and yeet them is really fun. There's so much more that I want to touch on with this game, like the flying, the overworld map, and all of the extra collectibles. But overall, I will just say that Skyward Sword feels very unique in its gameplay. There are so many different playstyles that players can go with, whether you want to just rush through the story, or take your time and go to every individual island in the sky. There's quite a lot to do in this game, and in some ways, you can pretty clearly tell how this was a gateway to what would eventually become Breath of the Wild. Skyward Sword HD was the first time I ever played Skyward Sword, and overall, I think it was a pretty enjoyable experience. While it is unfortunate that the Joy-Con don't have that level of precision that the Wii Remote had, the fact that they were able to convert the motion controls to button controls is actually pretty nice. I also like the small quality of life improvements in the HD version, such as being able to skip dialogue. In 2021, Nintendo made an announcement that completely shocked the world. The impossible was finally possible when a 3D Kirby game was announced during a September 2021 Nintendo Direct. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and this is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This is the very first true 3D Kirby game. Mario made the jump to 3D with Super Mario 64 back in 1998, and now 14 years later, let's do the same thing with Kirby. Since everybody was first anticipating a completely open world Kirby game, it became a bit of a surprise to see a map screen. The world map actually works pretty similarly to Super Mario 3D World. You fly on top of a star to every different level in each world. While it's not fully exploring some kind of a hub, it's pretty fun to just fly around the map and even find some small hidden secrets. You play through a string of normal 3D levels, all leading up to a big boss to finish off the world. And overall, I felt pretty satisfied with the variety of different levels. You had your typical like Mario type of worlds. You start out with grass, then you go to like a water/beach area. There's an ice world, you know, just your typical stuff. Which, I mean, it would have been really cool to see something completely unique and different, but hey, it works, and I was pretty happy with it. But along with all these different areas that you can explore, there's also Waddle Dee Town. This basically acts as like the main hub of the game, similar to like Peach's Castle in Mario 64 or Delfino Plaza in Super Mario Sunshine. For what it's worth, I thought Waddle Dee Town was actually like really nice. Not only is it just like this cute as heck little place with all these Waddle Dees walking around, but as you get farther and farther into the game, you unlock more in Waddle Dee Town. There's different like mini games that you can play. There's even this little fishing area, which is like the most random and just fun thing ever. I actually really liked the Coliseum, which is like a boss battle mode. You go through all the bosses that you've faced thus far, and if you win, you get a new upgraded ability. Speaking of which, there's a blacksmith in town where you can like upgrade all of your abilities. I don't know if this is a new thing or something, but I thought it was really cool. Being able to upgrade your abilities was like super helpful. It was really cool to see how they take just like a basic copy ability and then just expand it to something totally different. But now, what about the actual game itself? So as I mentioned before, you kind of fly on this overworld map and go into these individual levels. Basically, I feel like the levels in Kirby and the Forgotten Land feel like Super Mario 3D World levels, except expanded way more. You know, with most Mario levels, it's a pretty like straightforward, just start here, get to the end. With Kirby, I feel like there was a lot more places to explore. You know, the levels are a lot longer and, you know, you can see a lot more things. Yeah, I just really liked the variety in all the different levels. And for the most part, every single level is just so fun to explore. I wanted to go look through each nook and cranny that I could find. There's also secrets you can find throughout each level, whether it's finding hidden Waddle Dees to rescue, or even the blueprint to upgrade one of your abilities. Lots of like secret things to explore. They also do the thing where there's some parts in the level where you need a certain copy ability, which can kind of be annoying because it's like, I can't get to this one part of the level just because I don't have the right ability, but also I think it's kind of cool because it basically forces you to try out every different ability. So overall, I thought the levels were great. Just so much fun to explore and look around. The levels are just super like out of the box and just fun. Isn't that what it's all about? But speaking of copy abilities, there are quite a lot of abilities in this game. The ones that stick out to me are probably... I thought the spiky ball one was kind of interesting. Like, it wasn't my go-to one, but I thought it was like an interesting one to use. There's like a shooter ability, which was also not my favorite, but I thought was interesting. You have to actually aim this reticle and shoot. But by about 3/4 into the game, I knew what my go-to copy ability was. It's the fire. If you level up the fire to Dragon Fire, it is just so OP. I could take down basically any boss so easily because you blow the fire and then there's like constant damage being done to the enemy. And then of course we have to talk about mouthful mode. One of the like funniest things I've seen in a video game in a long time. Kirby will basically just swallow these giant objects and become them. It's such a weird thing and I feel so bad because it almost looks painful for Kirby to do this. But every time I become a car or I become a ring, it's just so funny. When I first saw this, it did really remind me of like Cappy in Mario Odyssey. And for the most part, it is kind of like the same concept. You swallow a car, you become a car. The one thing I will say about mouthful mode is that I do wish it was utilized more. I mean, don't get me wrong, every time I did it, I had so much fun. But I don't know, I wish there was like more things to do in mouthful mode. Now I'm like looking all over my room trying to find different things to be mouthful. And then finally, kind of getting to something a bit bit sad, let's talk about the price. Currently, Kirby and the Forgotten Land will run you $60 US, you know, a full price for a video game. And I've been seeing a lot of people online talking about how this game is short and like, you know, the amount of money you're playing for the length of the game just isn't right. Like in general, I will say if you are planning on buying Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I would probably wait for a sale. Maybe like $40 to $50 I think would be a nice price for this game. I managed to beat Kirby and the Forgotten Land in about 6 hours, and that was including trying to upgrade all my abilities and trying out all of the mini games and stuff. With that said, there is still a lot of side things that I have not done in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, so I would say 6 hours is the minimum to roll credits, but there is still a lot of other stuff you can do. So yeah, I can see why people have a problem with the length per dollar. For me, I just feel like I enjoyed it so much that I didn't mind the fact that it was a full price video game. So there's that. In conclusion, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a very, very fun time. For the first ever 3D Kirby game, it felt ridiculously natural. It almost felt like Kirby was made for 3D. The levels, copy abilities, and mouthful mode make this game super lighthearted, fun, and enjoyable. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and today we are going to be talking about the most violent video game Nintendo has ever made, Mario Strikers Battle League. I don't know about you guys, but I was so hyped to hear that we were getting another Mario Strikers game. Yo! Let's go! I used to play the original GameCube one with my brother, and we would get in so many arguments about it. So of course, I had to pick up Mario Strikers Battle League for the Nintendo Switch, and let's talk about what I think of the game. So hopping into the actual game, it controls about as good as you would expect. You pass the ball with A, you shoot using B, and you can even run with the trigger, which I believe is a new mechanic. I don't remember that being in the old ones. There's also the perfect timing mechanic, where basically with every move in the game, when you pull it off perfectly, you get a little bonus. It definitely takes some time getting used to pressing and holding the button and releasing at just the perfect time, but once you do get the hang of it, it is so satisfying pulling off a bunch of perfect passes and shots. Of course, what sets Mario Strikers apart from regular football or soccer is the absolutely violent tackling. This time around, the tackling actually works a bit different. Your success rate of tackles actually depends on the size and strength of the individual characters. For example, Toad can't just go up to Bowser and tackle him, and because of that, the tackling is honestly not as satisfying in my opinion as the original. I imagine they introduced this mechanic to kind of make it more fair and balance all of the characters, but there is just something so chaotic about tackling anybody and everybody in the original Mario Strikers. However, they do kind of make up for this with the charge tackle. So for example, if you are doing Toad against Bowser, you can charge up a tackle with Toad, which will actually affect Bowser. And what's really cool is that if you pull off a charged tackle perfectly, you can actually steal the ball from the opponent, which does feel pretty epic to do in a match. However, if you fail your charged tackle, you will just go falling on the field like an idiot. It's seriously like the funniest thing ever to watch somebody just miss a charged tackle, and it's just like so depressing. And there's also another new mechanic where if you charge tackle one of your teammates, you can actually bump them. And this can be helpful when you're chasing after the ball or if you're chasing after an opponent and you can just bump your teammate to tackle them. So overall, I was satisfied with the gameplay in Mario Strikers Battle League. It feels very familiar in terms of the classic Mario Strikers games, but is definitely expanded on. And because of that, this game is definitely more of an easy to pick up, difficult to master type of game. So if you are playing along with some new players, you will definitely need to go through the tutorial. On one hand, that's kind of a bummer because it basically excludes this game from being a real party game. But on the other hand, once you do get good with the controls, it makes for some very, very epic matches. And of course, with all of that being said, I won't say that it's impossible to win with just the basic controls. I imagine there are some people who can get by with just doing like the very basic tackling and passing and shooting. Overall, I think this game looks very, very great for a Nintendo game in HD. While the graphics do look pretty much up to par to today's standards, it's a bit of a bummer because in the original Mario Strikers, it looked so gritty and stylized Because Mario Strikers is just a very violent and energetic type of game, I feel like it was nice in the originals that the graphics reflected that. In Battle League, the graphics kind of look like, I guess if you took Mario 3D World graphics and put it into Mario Strikers. Sure, it looks nice, but I don't feel like it matches the tone of the game the best. I mean, it's not like it keeps me up at night or anything, but it would have been nice to have more grittier graphics for Mario Strikers Battle League. Now, something interesting about this game is that they introduced the ability to completely customize your team. Back on the original Mario Strikers, you basically chose a team captain and had a bunch of like the Mushroom Kingdom bee characters to play as on your team. So it would be like, I don't know, Luigi and Toads or Yoshi and a bunch of Koopa Troopas. But in Battle League, you can choose 4 mainline Mario characters, which is interesting because each character on the roster has their own individual stats. With that being said, it is very weird to play matches and see like 2 Marios or 2 Rosalinas or something. And I have to say the obvious that everybody else has been saying, justice for Daisy. But along with the stats for each individual character, you can also use equipment. You acquire in-game coins as you play the game, and you can use those coins to buy more equipment. And all of the equipment will raise or lower a specific stat in your character. I thought this was pretty interesting. It really allows you to dive in deep and really mess with the stats of each character. It is a bit of a bummer that you do have to buy every single piece of equipment for every single character. It can't be like you just buy one set for all of the characters and then this next set. You have to spend 100 coins for each piece of equipment for every single character. But hey, it's an interesting thing. Definitely will allow you to be way more creative with your team. But now, how about let's talk about all of the game modes that are offered in Mario Strikers Battle League. First off, there are the cup battles. This is basically the single player offering for this game, and it's a bit of a bummer because there is no storyline at all. It's just basic tournament style cups, and after each cup you earn coins for winning. Getting through the initial cup battles takes a very short amount of time, and it's like even with Mario Golf Super Rush, which had the very bare minimum of like a proper story mode, it would have been nice to at least get some kind of story for this game, but no, it's just a bunch of tournament style cups. Next up, we have Quick Play, and this is basically as it sounds. You can play on one system, play between systems, or play online matchmaking style. And this game offers up to 8 players, which is super duper awesome. I would love to see more games offer 8-player multiplayer. And speaking of which, let's talk about the online mode. From what I've experienced, the online works okay. It's totally playable. For a fast-paced game like this, it pretty much gets the job done. Although I did notice that the frame rate feels like it basically gets cut in half when you play online. It's quite choppy. And as far as I can tell, there is no sort of like in-game communication, similar to the little messages you can send in Smash Bros or in Splatoon. And for a team game like Strikers, it would be really nice to have some sort of way to just shoot out little messages to your teammates and stuff. Anyway, so that's Quick Play. Next up, we have Strikers Club. I'm gonna be honest, I pretty much did not touch this at all. As far as I can tell, this is like an IRL tournament style matchmaking. It's basically like fantasy football, I think. I don't know, does it look like I play football? And because of that, I feel like it's a bit too complicated for its own good. So from what I understand, you create a team, you invite people to join your team, and you can play matches during the off season to sort of like make the rank of your team better, I think. And so basically Nintendo decides when the season starts for Strikers Club. I believe the first season started like after a week of the game launching. So I feel like that would be cool for people who actually understand sports. Couldn't be me. And something I like in Strikers Club is that you can like fully customize your team. Like you can customize your team colors, the jerseys and logo, as well as the actual fields with the goal and the goalposts. It's something I wish would be implemented into like an actual story mode for the game or something. But in conclusion, I am happy that Mario Strikers still lives. Battle League takes the classic Strikers gameplay and adds a bunch of new mechanics on top. And for better or for worse, this is just a very straightforward Mario sports game. There's no gimmicks like in Mario Tennis Aces or Mario Golf Super Rush. There's no story mode or really like any proper single player. It's basically good if you just want to play a bunch of matches. Kirby's Dream Buffet is a very fun time that I'm glad that I purchased, but I will say that there are some negative things that we have to talk about. What is up guys, my name is Chase and it is way too late at night, which is why you're getting VTuber Chase for today. Anyway, Nintendo just recently released Kirby's Dream Buffet, which is kind of a surprise multiplayer Kirby game that is exclusively on the eShop. And before we get into this video, let me just say that I am having a very good time playing Kirby's Dream Buffet. It's super simple fun, which I really like. But what makes me so disappointed about Kirby's Dream Buffet is that it was so close to being a hidden gem for the Switch. Today I wanted to talk about some of the dark truths about Kirby's Dream Buffet. One thing that I think really holds this game back is that the local multiplayer is limited to only 2 players. I don't know why that is, maybe it has something to do with like the graphics, but when you take a look at a game like Kirby's Air Ride, which is actually quite similar to Kirby's Dream Buffet in some ways, that game had 4-player multiplayer and it was a super duper fun time. I think Kirby's Dream Buffet really could have benefited from offering 4-player multiplayer, because this would be one of the perfect new party games to play. Again, similarly to Kirby's Air Ride, where that game had very simple controls so that pretty much anybody could play it, Dream Buffet also has very simple controls. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, you could probably even play the game with a single Joy-Con. Basically, all you have to worry about is rolling, jumping, and using your copy abilities. So this would be like a perfect party scenario where everybody can use a single Joy-Con. The game is very simple where pretty much anybody could figure it out. I just think not having local 4-player multiplayer is a huge missed opportunity for this game. Speaking of multiplayer, I also want to talk about the online mode for this game. I've been trying to find people's experiences with their online mode for this game. In my personal experience, I can say that I honestly did not have the best time with the online mode for Kirby's Dream Buffet. There were many times when I was unable to match with other people. I don't know if that's because my level is too low or like what's going on there, but it was just so sad that the first online game that I played, I was unable to find anybody else to play with. However, maybe like 20% of the time I will match with other people, but when I do, the lag does ruin the game pretty bad. In a game that is a lot of times fast-paced, especially when you get to the Battle Royale minigames, the lag just makes it so sad to play. And then also with the online mode, you are limited to only playing with 4 players, which don't get me wrong, you know, I mean, most multiplayer games are 4-player anyway, but with so many people comparing this game to Fall Guys, it just makes me wish that this game had more than 4 players, that, you know, all of the computer characters that you play with when you're in online mode were actually real people. Once again, I don't know why this is the case. I feel like this game would be perfect for having like more than 4 people playing at the same time. It's really a bummer that even on the online mode, this game doesn't offer more than 4 players. But we've talked about multiplayer enough now, how about for all of us lonely folks? I really wish this game had some kind of single player story mode, which seems to be a pretty big trend with Nintendo games lately, which kind of scares me. You look at Mario Golf Super Rush, Mario Strikers Battle League, even Splatoon 3, at least from what we've seen. A lot of these games kind of like phone it in for the single player mode, which is a bit worrisome for me just because I do love to play the story mode for many games, and Kirby's Dream Buffet is no different. As of this recording, the only single player that this game offers is being able to play like Grand Prix with CPUs, and I will say that it is actually pretty fun playing these Grand Prix and trying to level up your character so that you can unlock new game modes, stages, and cosmetics. But if there was just some kind of story to tie everything together, you know, give a reason why Kirby and all of his friends are just these tiny little balls, like that could be super duper fun. Or I would have even taken some kind of like a tournament style mode like Mario Strikers, just something to make it feel like I'm progressing through a single player campaign mode would have been really good to have. But at the end of the day, I will say that there are some really great things about this game. The gameplay is way more fun than I expected. I went into this game not having any idea what was gonna happen, and actually playing it, I can confirm that it is actually pretty fun to play, especially all the different modes and like trying to actually race. I like that the game arguably puts more emphasis on collecting things on the course rather than just trying to be first place. The graphics in this game look super duper great. I imagine there is just a food graphics team at Nintendo that always takes care aware of making the food look really great in Nintendo games. And this game is no exception, all of the food looks really great. I also think it's nice that this game is not a full-priced game. It is $15 US in the eShop, which for the most part I do think you get your money's worth, which I'm a little bit on the fence about. If they threw in the things that I mentioned in this video, I would easily say that this game was worth the $15 US. But as it is right now, I'm still kind of iffy about whether or not it's worth it. Some days I do think it's worth the price point, while other days I do think it could be like a free game. But hey, I mean, at least it is 1/4 the price of a regularly priced game. Also, this game does a really great job at celebrating Kirby's anniversary and legacy with all of the collectibles that you can get, which are little snapshots from all of Kirby's past games. There's even a menu in the game where you can look at some of Kirby's biggest games. It's really cute, and it does feel like a fun little party to celebrate Kirby's 30th anniversary. And hey, hopefully there is some kind of DLC in the future for more stages or more modes. Maybe this could be like a Splatoon type deal where, since it is so focused on the multiplayer mode, they will throw in some more multiplayer centric stuff. What is up guys, my name is Chase and I was not paid to make this video about Disney Illusion Island. So Disney Illusion Island is a recent Nintendo Switch game coming from Disney Games and Dlala Studios. I recently picked up this game and I spent the weekend pretty much just binge playing this game. And what pushed me over the edge to make this video today is that I shared my experience playing Disney Illusion Island on Twitter, and the Dlala Studios Twitter account actually favorited my tweet and replied to me, thanking me for playing the game. And listen, maybe I'm just easily manipulated, but I thought that was a really cool gesture. I love when companies are actually active on social media and they actually take part in community discussions. I think it gives companies and brands an actual personality, which I feel like does actually go a long way. In fact, it went such a long way that it made me want to make this video. So yeah, let's rewind a bit and talk about my experience with Disney Illusion Island. First off, the biggest thing that drew me to this game is the art style. The art style of this entire game is sort of the toon style Mickey Mouse that we've seen Disney use a lot, especially recently, as sort of like a nostalgia type of thing. I think it looks really cute and it works really well for the entirety of this game. Seeing yourself actually control like a toon style Mickey in this toon style world, I think just looks really beautiful and just really cute. There are also a bunch of little nuances with the art style. Things like comedic gags, sort of old-timey explosions and rockets and whatnot, and even lots of facial expressions, which I also think adds a lot of emotion and personality to this game. The smallest things, like when you jump and then your little character icon will change depending on what type of movement you're doing. I think that's such a nice attention to detail. Now, speaking about the actual gameplay of Disney Illusion Island, I was actually not at all expecting this game to be what it turned out to be. As many reviewers have put it, Disney Illusion Island is basically baby's first Metroidvania, and I do think that's a really nice explanation for what kind of a game this is. You play as Mickey Mouse and friends, and you run around this giant map, which has a bunch of different screens to explore. As you unlock more abilities, you'll be able to unlock more of the map, and as you progress the story, you will also travel a lot between different areas of this giant map. In a way, it almost feels like an open world type of game, except in a 2D environment, if that makes any sense. Like, this map is absolutely giant, and you can pretty much explore wherever you want at your leisure, but obviously the actual gameplay is in 2D. Speaking of which, I also have to give a huge shout out to the controls in this game. I'm always very picky about how 2D side-scrollers or 2D platformers play. I think I have just become so mentally conditioned to Mario that I always expect 2D games to use Mario as the basis for their control. And with Disney Illusion Island, there are a lot of really interesting controls in this game. For one thing, you can't actually harm any of the enemies in this game, which means that you have to rely on jumping and platforming to avoid enemies. So this means that it's almost like you're speedrunning throughout this entire game. And luckily, it works incredibly well with the very tight controls in this game. I feel like it's tough for me to explain, but the controls are just ridiculously tight, and it makes makes it perfect for the type of game that this is. You can easily be running and quickly turn the other way. They even have a backflip mechanic similar to a certain Italian plumber. It just overall controls very, very well, and the fact that you are running around this giant map, it makes it so that it's actually an enjoyable experience to navigate this giant world. I don't know, I honestly just felt so cool running throughout the map and doing all kinds of wall jumps and backflips and whatnot. The controls in this game are just a dream. So overall, I think it's safe to say that I had a pretty enjoyable experience with Disney Illusion Island on the Nintendo Switch. I think this is like a perfect game for kids or even some adults who want just a very like lighthearted, happy, fun little 2D Metroidvania type of game. I think it gives you a very nice introduction to the Metroidvania genre, where it is a giant map and you're probably going to have to reference it quite a few times throughout the game, but the graphics along with the gameplay and the controls make it so that it doesn't feel like a chore having to go through this entire map. And with this game being up to 4 players, I imagine this game would be great for any party of people who love Disney. And yeah, a huge shout out to Dlala Studios, who also turned out to have worked on the Battletoads revival a few years ago. I love that they're so active on social media. You'll often find them retweeting fans or replying to them. I can't stress enough how nice that is that, you know, you can kind of give a voice and a personality to this company. So I was not paid to make this video, and I can give Disney Illusion Island on the Nintendo Switch my stamp of approval. Let's talk about what sets Super Mario Bros. Wonder apart from any other 2D Mario game. What is up guys, my name is Chase, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the latest 2D Mario game for the Nintendo Switch, is finally here. It feels like we have been begging Nintendo for a refresh of the 2D Mario series for years. And now, over 10 years later after New Super Mario Bros. U, Nintendo came out swinging with a brand new, unique 2D Mario game. But you may be asking yourself, what makes this Mario game different from any other Mario game? Well, in this video, I'll be talking about just some of the things that make Super Mario Bros. Wonder so special. The first thing that I think sets Super Mario Bros. Wonder apart from any other previous Mario game is the art style. By the end of the new Super Mario Bros. Series, I would say that the art style was a major component in what made a lot of the games just feel the same. Sure, it was very innovative when the first new Super Mario Bros. Game came out, but by the 4th one, you really couldn't tell this game apart from this game. And joke's on you because these are the same game. With Super Mario Bros. Wonder, it felt like they finally went back to the drawing board, quite literally, and tried to re-innovate what a 2D Mario game looks like. The overall aesthetic of Super Mario Bros. Wonder has almost this clay type of art style. It reminds me of something like Kirby's Epic Yarn or Yoshi's Woolly World. The characters finally feel different than the old plasticky look of New Super Mario Bros. And speaking of which, this new art style really allows the characters to be so much more expressive. I don't know exactly what it is, but you can definitely see way more emotion on the characters' facial expressions. Even down to the UI elements like your lives counter or the coins counter. It all feels totally new and totally fresh. The character select screen doesn't feel like the generic ones that we have gotten so used to in new Super Mario Bros. Games, and especially the animations in this game just feels totally fresh. The static boringness of Mario going into a pipe has now been fully replaced with a totally just fun animation. And heck, we haven't even touched on all of the background elements throughout all of the levels in this game. So overall, the graphics and art style got a much needed refresh this time around in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. The second thing that I think makes Super Mario Bros. Wonder so special is just how wacky it is. The wackiness of this game, I think, definitely reflects the wonder part of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. There is just so much weird things happening all throughout the levels in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Whether it's the weird new enemies, the Bowser Jr. battles having their own unique spin to them, and of course, freaking Elephant Mario. So much of this game is just weird, but in the best way possible. And of course, when we're talking about the weird things in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, we have to talk about the Wonder Flowers, which is just an absolute trip. You'll end up seeing the wildest things like crawling worm pipes, a charging herd of rhinos, or pipes falling from the sky. The Wonder Flowers take the weirdness of Super Mario Bros. Wonder to a whole new level, and it makes for some of the trippiest gameplay ever. The third thing that I think sets Super Mario Bros. Wonder apart from any other 2D Mario game is some of the brand new gameplay mechanics. I find it very commendable that even with the brand new art style and the overall just weirdness of this game, Nintendo still built upon Super Mario Bros. To give us some brand new gameplay mechanics. With the online mode of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, while it's not exactly what you would expect from online multiplayer, I think it's still an interesting and unique compromise. Things like being able to leave standees throughout the levels for other people online makes it feel like something straight out of freaking Death Stranding or something. In a perfect world, we would be able to play through Super Mario Bros. Wonder alongside our friends, but hey, the online component of Super Mario Bros. Wonder at least adds some multiplayer to it. And of course, we have to talk about the badges in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I remember they had a similar thing in Yoshi's Woolly World. These are just little additions to the game that may help you in some levels. For example, there's a badge that allows you to float through the air with Mario's cap. There's a badge that allows you to get an extra jump from a wall jump. And there's a badge that allows you to do a dolphin kick underwater. Now, some players are going to be able to use these badges sort of as handicaps in order to help them through the levels, but what I find so cool about badges is that throughout the world map, you'll come across these little challenge levels that are tailor-made for specific badges. So for example, there is a level with a bunch of suspending blocks where you have to make use of the wall jump badge. I think that is a very interesting and very different gameplay mechanic. It forces you to think differently as to how you play this 2D Mario game. And hey, you're also able to buy a blind bag for standees in the shops. So Super Mario Bros. Wonder even caters to the Gamba and Gacha players out there. So those were just some of the reasons that I think Super Mario Bros. Wonder is so much different than any other 2D Mario game. I absolutely love how unique, different, and just overall wacky this Mario game is. Should you play Super Mario RPG even if you've never played the original? What is up guys, my name is Chase, and Super Mario RPG is the latest Mario game available for the Nintendo Switch. And in case you didn't know, this is a remake of the original Super Mario RPG released on the Super Nintendo in 1996. So if you're like me and you've never played the original game before, you might be wondering, is it worth picking up Super Mario RPG on the Nintendo Switch? Well, in this video, we'll be taking a look at some of the good and bad of Super Mario RPG as a complete noob. The first thing that I feel like we need to talk about with Super Mario RPG on the Switch is the graphics. Holy freaking cannoli, the graphics in Super Mario RPG for the Switch are just incredible. They did an amazing job completely remaking the old Super Nintendo 16-bit graphics and bringing it over to modern times. In a day and age where I feel like every game is going for this like HD 2D type of art style like Octopath Traveler, it's really nice that they didn't just settle with that, they went ahead and just completely redid the graphics. Maybe that might be a good or bad thing if you want like the original graphics of Super Mario RPG. For me personally, the graphics in this game just blew me away. I feel like this game really excels at showing just how good Mario can look with up-to-date and present-day hardware. Not only does all of the top-down and like sort of exploration graphics look great, but they also went ahead and added cutscenes into this game, and they just look really beautiful. There's this new triple move mechanic, which is basically an ult with the 3 characters in your party, and depending on which characters you currently have in your party, there is a completely unique cutscene to go along with it. I can maybe see these cutscenes getting a bit old after a while, but for now, where I currently am in the game, I just think it's so beautiful and really charming. Next up, let's talk about the stories and characters of Super Mario RPG. I think Super Mario RPG offers a very different and original story. I mean, looking back at the history of this game, it was released on the Super Nintendo, so the most we probably knew about Mario was having to do with Super Mario World at the time. And with Square Enix developing this game, it makes sense that the story is kind of out there. I also think this story does a really good job at giving the Mario characters some background and extra depth. This might be somewhat spoilers depending on how much you know about this game. I will say, since it is literally on the cover of this game, there's a really cool thing where Bowser actually joins your party. Basically, Bowser and Mario have to set aside their differences and try to fight for the greater good. Even Princess Peach ends up joining your party, which is really cool because it's one of the few times when Peach isn't the damsel in distress, and she's no longer just being completely hopeless. Along with all of the Mario characters that we know and love, there are also some new characters introduced through the story. So far with my progress in the game, I feel like some of the characters fit in a bit better than others. For example, I feel like Malo could be a really great just regular Mario character. But I'm not gonna lie, especially with Square making this game, there are some characters that I almost feel like would fit more in something like Final Fantasy. But it's not like it completely ruins the story or anything, I just thought it's a very interesting addition to the Mario universe. So with the story and characters in Super Mario RPG, it's very different and in some cases even kind of weird, but I think that does a really great job at actually making this game feel unique. Now with all of that being said, what about the actual gameplay of Super Mario RPG? I feel like if you're watching this video, you probably know by now whether or not you like RPGs, and with this game being released in 1996, it is very much your traditional turn-based RPG. I will say that the addition of Mario characters makes it a lot more appealing, especially for me since I'm this guy's biggest fan. So with all of the enemy encounters and the turn-based combat, I've generally been having a pretty good time with that. I should also mention that something really cool with Super Mario RPG is that there is actually a breezy mode, which is a lot more beginner friendly. Not gonna lie, I have been playing this game on breezy mode, but hey, I'm proud of it. So that's very nice, especially if you aren't super into RPGs. There are even some mini games scattered throughout, which can be like a fun little break from the story and the turn-based combat. Now with this being a remake of a Super Nintendo game from 27 years ago, I did also have to question how well this game would age all of these years later. From what I hear, this is a pretty short game, especially compared to RPGs nowadays. I would honestly say that there are some gameplay elements that I don't think have aged super duper well. For example, buying items or clothing, the descriptions can feel a bit empty and sometimes you're not sure exactly what the item does. It can also become a bit difficult to remember or figure out what to do or where to go. With some of the hints, they can feel a bit too basic. It also lacks compared to the Paper Mario games where you usually have a companion character to give you hints through dialogue. In Super Mario RPG, you'll just get like the same 1 or 2 hints and that's all. And maybe those are just little nitpicks about this game. It definitely doesn't ruin it or anything. I will say that I absolutely love the fact that they kept a lot of the sound effects from the original game in this remake. I thought that was really funny to hear all of those like classic sound effects. Super Mario RPG on the Nintendo Switch is a very worthy remake of the original Super Nintendo game. I think they did a masterful job at bringing over this old game over to the current consoles. Huge props specifically to the graphics department. I think this game really shines. And it also features a very different and unique story that I think gives these Mario characters who we've known for so long a lot more depth. Let me know in the comments if there are some Nintendo Switch games that you guys are very interested in. If you want to watch another one of my videos all about the Nintendo Switch, feel free to check out the video below. For now, thank you so much for watching. My name is Chase and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!